Most visitors come to Saint-Germain-des-Prés for the famous café, the atmosphere, and the Pont des Arts. And yes, we'll see all of that. But today, I want to show you the wider Saint-Germain I would actually recommend to a friend. Iconic cafes, hidden courtyards, beautiful churches, places to relax, and a few gourmet stops nearby that are absolutely worth the short walk. We'll go from the Seine to the heart of Saint-Germain, then toward beautiful gardens, elegant shopping streets, and some of the most atmospheric corners of the left bank. And later in the video, I'll show you one of the most surprising places in Paris. Around 3 million people visited it in 2025, roughly as many as the Musée d'Orsay. Yet, many visitors walk straight past it without even knowing what it is. This map is available for download in the description below. Let's begin on the northern edge of the Saint-Germain neighborhood, along the Seine. One of the most beautiful ways to enter this part of the left bank is to walk past the Bouquinistes, the famous street booksellers of Paris, and then reach the Pont des Arts. This bridge connects the Louvre on the right bank with the Institut de France. But to me it feels like one of the most romantic gateways into Saint-Germain-des-Prés. For years, the Pont des Arts was famous for its love locks. They became so heavy that the city eventually had to remove them. And honestly, I think the bridge is much better without them. Because what you really come here for is the view. And the shows. By the way, the installation you can see here on the Pont Neuf was a temporary work by the French artist J.R. It was called La Caverne du Pont Neuf. It was here only in June 2026 and it has now disappeared. Take all the time you need on the Pont des Arts. On one side, the Louvre, on the other, the Institut de France, and all around you, the Seine, the bridges, the rooftops, and that very Parisian fulfillment feeling that is difficult to describe, but very easy to recognize. If you come late afternoon or around sunset, this is one of the simplest and most beautiful moments you can have in Paris. No ticket, no reservation, no queue, just Paris. And from here, in just a few minutes, you can walk into the heart of Saint-Germain-des-Prés. And of course, when people think of Saint-Germain, they often think of one café first, Café de Flore. This isn't just a café, it is almost a symbol of the neighborhood. With its white awnings, green lettering, terrace chairs, waiters in traditional uniforms, and constant people watching, this is almost the postcard image of Saint-Germain-des-Prés. Now let's be honest. As I showed in one of my recent videos, don't come here expecting the best value meal in Paris. At Café de Flore, you are partly paying for the location, the history, and the atmosphere. But for a drink, a coffee, or simply to sit on the terrace and watch the world go by, it is still one of the great Saint-Germain experiences. And just 50 meters away, you have the eternal rival, les Deux Magots. The two cafés are often mentioned together, but I don't think they feel exactly the same. For me, Café de Flore is more about the myth, the terrace, the iconic Saint-Germain image. Les Deux Magots feels a little more like a place where I can actually sit down for a proper breakfast, lunch or dinner. So if you ask me, which one would I choose? For a symbolic drink and a classic Saint-Germain photo, I would probably choose Café de Flore. But for a real meal, or if I had to spend more time at the table, I would choose les Deux Magots. In both cases, you are not just buying food or coffee. You are buying a seat in one of the most famous corners of Paris. Now let's leave the famous café behind and look for a quieter Saint-Germain. Because one of the pleasures of this neighborhood is that you can be just a few minutes from the crowds, turn into a smaller street, and suddenly feel that Paris has slowed down. My first stop is Place de Furstenberg. This is one of these tiny Parisian squares that does not need a monument to be memorable. A few tall trees, a beautiful lamppost in the middle, surrounded by elegant facades, and that very intimate left bank atmosphere. You'll find here one of my favorite shops in the area, La Compagnie Française des Poivres et des Épices. It's a beautiful little shop dedicated to spices, peppers, salts, and blends from all around the world. It's exactly the kind of place I love in Saint-Germain. Discreet, elegant, specialized, and perfect if you want to bring back something more original than the usual Paris souvenir. The square is also closely associated with the painter Eugène Delacroix, whose museum is just here. Even if you do not visit the museum or the shop, I think the square itself is worth a stop. Come early in the morning if you can, or later in the day when the light becomes softer. It is one of the best places in Saint-Germain for a quiet photo. Not spectacular, but very Parisian. And that is exactly why I like it. From Place de Furstenberg, let's move toward Boulevard Saint-Germain, near the statue of Danton, to discover one of the most atmospheric alleys in the neighborhood, the Cour du Commerce Saint-André. This narrow passage is one of my favorite short walks in Saint-Germain. It has cobblestones, old facades, restaurant terraces, and a feeling of history that is much stronger than on the main boulevard. On the second floor of this brasserie here on the right, you'll find one of my favorite cocktail bars in Paris, Groovy with a U. It is elegant, a little hidden, and very Saint-Germain in spirit. In the alley, you can spot Le Procope, the oldest café restaurant in Paris, and the whole area has strong connections with the intellectual and revolutionary history of the city. And here on the left, another great spot if you want a treat is La Jacobine, a charming salon de thé tucked inside the passage. Just nearby the Cour du Commerce Saint-André, there is another small passage I think many visitors miss. Passage Dauphine. It is not spectacular, you will not spend half an hour here, but that is precisely the point. Saint-Germain is full of this short, discreet passage where you can escape the traffic for a moment and feel a more intimate version of Paris. For me, this is not a major destination by itself. But if you are already around Odéon on Cours du Commerce Saint-André, it is exactly the kind of little detour that makes the walk more enjoyable. So far, we've seen the famous Saint-Germain and the hidden Saint-Germain. Now let's slow down even more, because some of the best experiences in this area are not places you visit quickly. They are places where you sit, walk, breathe, and simply enjoy Paris. And for that, we have to start with one of the most beautiful gardens in Paris, the Luxembourg Gardens. Strictly speaking, Luxembourg Gardens are not in the tiny historic core of Saint-Germain-des-Prés. But if you are exploring this wider Saint-Germain area and you skip them, I think you're making a mistake. This is one of the great Parisian pleasures. The palace, the gravel paths, the green chairs, the statues, the flower beds, the fountains, the lawns where you can stay. Everything here feels both grand and relaxed. It is not a secret place. It is not hidden. But it's one of the rare famous places in Paris that still feels genuinely enjoyable, even when there are lots of people around. And if you visit Paris with kids, they'll have the best time of their stay in the city, pushing little boats on the Pont. My advice here is very simple. Do not just come, take some photos and leave. Choose a chair, sit down for 10 or 15 minutes. Watch the city slow down around you. And even better, make it a picnic stop. In one of last year's videos, I came here with a simple picnic and sat on a chair in the garden. Nothing complicated, nothing expensive, just good Parisian food, a quiet corner, and one of the most beautiful settings in Paris. And honestly, that is one of the best ways to enjoy the Luxembourg Gardens. Because Paris is not only about checking monuments off a list. Sometimes the best memory is just sitting in a garden, eating something good, and feeling that you are part of the city for a little while. And if you want one of the prettiest corners of the garden, walk toward the Medici fountain. It is shaded, romantic, a little more intimate, and for me one of the most beautiful places in the Luxembourg Gardens. So yes, Luxembourg Gardens are famous, but they're famous for a reason. And if I had only one day in this wider Saint-Germain neighborhood, this would definitely be one of my priorities. Now from Luxembourg Gardens, I want to show you a place that almost nobody talks about. If you walk south toward the Avenue de l'Observatoire, you reach the Jardin des Grands Explorateurs and the Fontaine des Quatre Parties du Monde. Honestly, I find this fontaine spectacular, the most beautiful in Paris. It shows 4 female figures carrying the globe, representing 4 parts of the world as they were imagined in the 19th century. It is monumental, full of movement, and very different from the small discreet fontaines people usually associate with Paris. And yet, compared with places like the Luxembourg Gardens, Saint-Sulpice, or the famous Café, very few visitors make the short detour to see it. That is why I wanted to include it in this list. Not because it's the most famous stop in this video, but because it is exactly the kind of place that makes a walk in Paris more interesting. Now let's come back toward the Saint-Germain and Sèvres-Babylone area for a much smaller, much more local place, Square Boucicaut. This is not a spectacular garden like Luxembourg Gardens, and that's why I like it. Square Boucicaut is a small neighborhood square, just opposite Le Bon Marché, with trees, benches, families, people taking a short break, and a very local left bank feeling. You do not come here for a major monument. You come here because it's pleasant, calm, and useful. If you have been walking for a while, this is a good place to sit for a few minutes before shopping, before visiting La Grande Épicerie, or before continuing toward Rue du Bac. And the name Boucicaut is important here. Aristide Boucicaut was the man who transformed Le Bon Marché into one of the first modern department stores, and his name is still strongly connected with this part of Paris. So this square is also a perfect transition. We started this chapter with the grand Parisian elegance of Luxembourg Gardens. Then we discovered a dramatic fontaine that many visitors miss. And now we end in a small local square just across the street from one of the great shopping and gourmet institutions of the left bank. Because after relaxing, it is time for something much more practical, and probably much more tempting. Just over, there is Le Bon Marché, and for food lovers, even better, La Grande Épicerie de Paris. Saint-Germain is not only about cafés, churches, and beautiful streets. It's also one of the best areas in Paris for shopping, especially if you love food, tea, beauty products, gifts, or anything a little refined. There are hundreds of interesting shops in this neighborhood. And when it comes to food shopping, I have already made several videos about Saint-Germain. But if I had to choose only 3 places that are absolute must for shoppers, these would be my picks: La Grande Épicerie de Paris, City Pharma, and Mariage Frères. And since we are just across the street, let's begin with one of my favorite food stores in Paris, La Grande Épicerie de Paris. La Grande Épicerie is part of Le Bon Marché, but for food lovers, it is almost a destination in itself. This is the kind of place where you come in thinking, I'll just have a quick look. And 30 minutes later, you are still looking at cheese, pastries, spices, olive oils, jams, chocolates, wines, teas, and things you did not even know you wanted. Of course, this is not the cheapest food shop in Paris. But the selection is superb, the presentation is beautiful, and if you want to bring something special back from Paris, this is one of the easiest places to find it. It's also a great place to prepare a picnic. You can buy bread, cheese, charcuterie, fruit, pastries, drinks, and then take everything to Luxembourg Gardens, Square Boucicaut, or another quiet place nearby. It's also one of the best wine shops in Paris, with thousands of different wines. So for me, La Grande Épicerie is not only a luxury food store. It's also a very practical stop if you want to taste Paris without necessarily sitting down in a restaurant. Of course, if you love tea, La Grande Épicerie already has a very nice selection. But if you really want to go one step further, then I would recommend a dedicated stop at Mariage Frère, located between the Pont des Arts and the Cours du Commerce Saint-André. Founded in 1854, Mariage Frère is a luxurious tea house, widely regarded as the most prestigious tea house in the world. It is both a tea shop and a very elegant gift idea. You will find black teas, green teas, white teas, scented teas, beautiful tea tins, accessories, and blends that feel much more special than a generic Paris souvenir. For me, this is one of the best places in Saint-Germain if you want to bring something refined back home. It is light, easy to pack, elegant, and very Parisian. And if, like me, you prefer tea to coffee, this is obviously a dangerous place. You may enter for one tin and leave with several. Now let's move from something calm, elegant, and refined to something much more practical, and usually much more crowded. Because no shopping chapter about Saint-Germain would be complete without City Pharma. City Pharma is probably the most famous pharmacy in Paris for French skincare and beauty products. And yes, it can be crowded. Sometimes very crowded. But if you're looking for French pharmacy brands, cosmetics, sunscreens, skincare, or products that will be way cheaper here than in your home country, this is a place many visitors specifically want to visit. My advice is simple. Do not come here if you want a calm, elegant shopping experience. Numerous employees are available to assist you in selecting your cosmetics at City Pharma, but be prepared for a very lengthy queue when it comes time to pay. Come here if you know what you are looking for, or if you enjoy hunting for good French pharmacy products at very competitive prices. It is busy, it is practical, and it is not exactly romantic Saint-Germain, but it's undeniably useful. And that is why I include it in my list. Because a good Paris guide is not only about beautiful places, it's also about the places people actually use. And after food, tea, skincare and shopping, let's come back to the deeper soul of Saint-Germain. Its churches, its history, and the surprising place I teased at the beginning. Let's start with the church that gave the neighborhood its name, Saint-Germain-des-Prés. If the cafés are the mythology of Saint-Germain, this church is its deep memory. This was originally the church of a powerful abbey, and its history goes back to the very early centuries of Paris. It's not the biggest church in the city. It is not the most spectacular. But for me, it is one of the most meaningful stops in this neighborhood. From the outside, look at the bell tower, the old stone, the proportions. You immediately feel that this place belongs to a much older Paris. And inside, the atmosphere is quite different from many other Parisian churches. There are colors, painted ceilings, frescoes, columns, and a warmth that makes the interior feel almost unexpected if you only know the church from the boulevard. My advice here is simple. Do not just take a quick photo and move on. Stay inside for a few minutes. Look up, walk slowly, soak up the atmosphere. Saint-Germain-des-Prés is not only a beautiful church, it is the anchor of the whole neighborhood. The café, the gallery, the bookshops, the intellectual history. All of that came much later. This is where the name Saint-Germain-des-Prés really begins. The place where you're standing was built almost 500 years before Christopher Columbus discovered America. The flagstones you're walking on were laid there before the year 1000. Notre-Dame de Paris today is resplendent with light, but perhaps a little less mysterious than it once was. In Saint-Germain-des-Prés, by contrast, you still feel the full weight of history. Now just a few minutes away, let's visit another church with a very different personality, Saint-Sulpice. Saint-Sulpice is much larger, more monumental, and much more dramatic. Even before you go inside, the facade gives you a sense of scale. It dominates the square, but in a calmer, less touristy way than Notre-Dame or Sacré-Cœur. And inside, Saint-Sulpice is clearly one of the most impressive churches on the left bank. 120 meters long, 57 meters wide, 30 meters high under the central vault, it is the second largest church in Paris after Notre-Dame. So if Saint-Germain-des-Prés is the intimate, historical church of the neighborhood, Saint-Sulpice is the grand, powerful one. And now, it is time for the place I teased at the beginning of the video. A place behind Le Bon Marché, on the unpretentious Rue du Bac, that many visitors walk past without realizing how important it is. Not a café, not a museum, not a shop. The chapelle Notre-Dame de la Médaille Miraculeuse. From the street, it is very discreet. You could easily miss the entrance if you did not know what you were looking for. And don't get me wrong, when I came here to film early on a Monday morning, it was very quiet. There were not many people inside. And yet, around 3 million people visited this chapel in 2025, roughly as many as the Musée d'Orsay. That contrast is precisely what makes this place so surprising. Architecturally, it is clearly not the most spectacular church in Paris. But spiritually, for many visitors from around the world, it is extremely important. More important than any other church in Paris, including Notre-Dame. The story goes back to 1830, when the Virgin Mary is said to have appeared here to Catherine Labouré, a young sister of the Daughters of Charity. According to the tradition, Mary asked for a medal to be made, what became known as the Miraculous Medal. Since then, this small chapel has become a major place of devotion, especially for Catholic visitors from many countries around the world. And that is why I wanted to include this place in my list. Because Paris is not only the places everyone photographs. Sometimes, one of the most visited places in the city can be almost hidden in plain sight. Even if you're not religious, and I'm not, I think this chapel tells you something important about Paris. The city has many layers. There's the Paris of extraordinary monuments and museums, the Paris of cafés and terraces, the Paris of beautiful gardens, and the Paris of shopping and food. But there's also this quieter Paris, where millions of people come for reasons that are much more personal. If you visit, be respectful. This is not just a tourist attraction. It is first of all a place of prayer. Maybe more than in the other churches of Paris. You can feel the devotion here. According to the tradition, Mary asked that a medal be made. And today, there's a small shop where visitors can buy the miraculous medal for a very modest price. For believers, this medal is not just a souvenir, it's an object of devotion, associated with protection, grace, and sometimes healing. Whether you personally believe in it or not, this helps explain why so many people from around the world come to this discreet chapel on Rue du Bac. Maybe you'll agree that as part of this wider Saint-Germain discovery, it is one of the most surprising stops you can make. And that completes my 15 amazing things to do in Saint-Germain-des-Prés and around. As you've seen, Saint-Germain is much more than two famous cafés and a romantic bridge. Of course, the icons are part of the pleasure. Pont des Arts, Café de Flore, les Deux Magots, they all belong to the mythology of Paris. But what I love even more is the variety of this neighborhood. In just one walk, you can find quiet courtyards, hidden passages, beautiful gardens, gourmet shops, local addresses, historic churches, and even one of the most surprising places in Paris, almost hidden in plain sight. So if you only have limited time here, my advice is simple. Do not try to do everything too fast. Choose a few places that really appeal to you, leave time to sit down, have a drink, walk slowly, and enjoy the atmosphere. Because Saint-Germain-des-Prés is not only a neighborhood you visit, it's a neighborhood you experience. And if this video helped you plan your own visit to Paris, there are plenty other Paris neighborhood guides on my channel. As always, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next Paris Top Tips video.